I heard my cat wailing by the garage. When I opened the door, my fiancée and her coworker were half-dressed, sprawled across my fully restored BMW like it was some seedy motel bed. My name is Aaron. I am 34, and I work as a mechanical engineer for a manufacturing company outside Columbus. My weeks are structured and predictable. I am in the office by 7, home by 5, and most evenings I spend either at the gym or in my garage restoring older cars. I bought my house 3 years ago, and I like keeping things orderly and quiet. My fiancée, Melissa, is 31 and works in medical device sales. We have been together for 3 years and engaged for 8 months. She moved into my house last summer, and we split utilities while I cover the mortgage since the property is mine. She travels often for work and has a more social lifestyle than I do. Melissa can be sharp. She has a quick temper and a habit of speaking in a way that feels like she is correcting you rather than talking with you. I noticed it early, but it was usually directed at waiters or customer service people, not at me. When it was at me, it was small things. The way I folded towels, the brand of coffee I bought. She framed it as standards. I restore cars as a hobby, but one project meant more to me than the others. A 1998 BMW M3 that I spent 2 years rebuilding from the frame up. New suspension, rebuilt engine, original paint corrected by hand. It stays in the detached garage behind the house. I do not let anyone lean on it, eat near it, or set drinks on it. Melissa used to roll her eyes about that. Last Thursday night, I was finishing some paperwork at the kitchen table when I heard my cat, Oliver, yowling from the backyard. He does not usually make noise unless he is locked somewhere or scared. It was loud and constant, not the kind of sound he makes chasing something. Melissa had told me earlier she was working late with a coworker on a regional presentation. Her car was in the driveway when I got home, but she was not inside when I came downstairs after the noise started. The garage light was on. At first I assumed she needed something from the freezer out there. I grabbed a flashlight out of habit and stepped into the yard. Oliver was near the side of the garage door, pacing and crying like he could hear something I could not. That was when I realized the garage door was closed, but the side door was not latched all the way. I remember thinking it was strange that she would leave the side door barely shut. Melissa is particular about security when it benefits her. She has reminded me more than once to double-check locks before bed. So seeing that door sitting uneven in the frame did not match her usual tone about safety. Oliver brushed past my leg and darted inside as soon as I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. Not gasoline or oil. Something sharper. Perfume layered over sweat. It did not belong in a garage that normally smells like rubber and metal. The overhead lights were on. My tools were still laid out from the night before when I had adjusted the rear suspension on the BMW. I stepped in slowly, more confused than suspicious at that point. I was still trying to give her the benefit of something reasonable. Then I heard a laugh. It was Melissa's laugh. The high, performative one she uses at networking events. The one that always sounds slightly exaggerated. It came from the far side of the car. My BMW was parked in the center of the garage, angled slightly, so I could walk around it easily. From where I stood by the door, I could not see the hood clearly, but I could see movement reflected in the windshield. I took 3 steps forward. That is when the angle changed and the full picture came into view. Melissa was sitting on the hood of my car. Not just sitting. Her dress was pushed up around her hips. One heel was dangling off her foot. A man I recognized from a company holiday party was standing between her knees. His shirt was unbuttoned halfway, and her hands were on his shoulders. They were not mid-conversation. They were very obviously in the middle of something else. My brain did not explode. It did not shut down. It went strangely quiet. I noticed small details. The way her bare thigh was pressed directly against the paint. The crease forming on the hood from their weight. The fact that he had set his belt on my windshield like it was a shelf. Oliver hissed from somewhere behind me. Melissa turned first. Her expression did not show panic. It showed irritation. Like I had interrupted her call. She did not scramble to cover herself. She did not jump off the hood in embarrassment. She looked at me the same way she looks when I forget to pick up dry cleaning. Mildly annoyed that I had created inconvenience. Her coworker, Daniel, stepped back first. He fumbled with his belt and muttered something under his breath that I could not fully catch. He avoided eye contact immediately, which at least suggested he understood the situation better than she did. Melissa slid off the hood slowly, smoothing her dress down with exaggerated calm. "You were supposed to be inside," she said. Not apologetic, not shocked, just inconvenienced. I asked one question. "How long?" She crossed her arms. Long enough that you should not act surprised. That answer told me two things. First, this was not a one-time lapse in judgment. Second, she had already justified it to herself. Daniel attempted to step around the car toward the door. I moved to block him without raising my voice. I told him to pick up his things and leave through the front yard, not the side gate. He nodded quickly. He did not argue. He grabbed his belt from the windshield, which left a faint streak across the glass, and walked out without another word. Melissa rolled her eyes at that. You are being dramatic, Aaron. I walked over to the hood of the BMW. There were visible scuff marks from her heels near the edge. The paint had taken months to correct. I ran my hand lightly across the surface, not out of affection, but to assess damage. I could feel a slight indentation where their weight had rested. You care more about that car than about me, she said flatly. That was the first emotional statement she made. It was not remorse. It was accusation. I stood up straight and looked at her. I told her that what she did was not about a car. It was about respect for my home, my property, and our engagement. I asked her directly if she had planned this here. She shrugged. It was convenient. You were busy. I needed a break from pretending everything is perfect. There was no denial. No scrambling for excuses. Just an implied blame shift, like my stable routine had somehow forced her into this. That was the moment the situation stopped being shocking and started being logistical. I did not raise my voice. I did not ask for a detailed confession. The facts were visible, and she was not disputing them. So I shifted from emotion to decision. I told her the wedding was off. I said it clearly and once. We were supposed to finalize catering numbers next week. That was no longer happening. I would be calling the venue in the morning. She blinked like I had made an unreasonable jump. You are seriously ending everything over this. I corrected her. I am ending it because you chose to cheat in my garage, on my car, while living in my house. That is not a lapse. That is a decision. She started pacing, arms tight against her sides. She said I was rigid, that I never adapted, that she felt stifled. It sounded rehearsed, like she had already constructed a narrative where this was my fault for being predictable. I let her talk for less than a minute. Then I stopped it. I told her we were not debating compatibility anymore. She crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. That is the end of the engagement. Her tone shifted from defensive to sharp. So what now? You are going to throw me out in the middle of the night. Yes, I said. You need to pack a bag tonight. You can arrange to move the rest this weekend. I will not have you in my house after what I just saw. For context, her name is not on the mortgage. She pays a portion of utilities and groceries. Legally, the house is mine. I made that clear when she moved in, and we never combined major assets. There was no shared lease to untangle. She tried another angle. This is illegal. You cannot just evict someone. I told her she was not being evicted. I was ending a cohabitation arrangement after a breach of trust. I would give her reasonable time to collect her belongings. But she would not be sleeping here tonight. She stared at me like she expected me to fold. I did not. I walked back inside, grabbed an overnight duffel from the hall closet, and placed it on the bed. I told her she had 30 minutes to pack essentials. I would stay in the living room while she did it. For the first time, she looked unsettled. I did not argue further. I did not insult her. I simply removed the ring from my pocket where she had placed it months ago during a dinner proposal and set it on the dresser. The engagement ended in that bedroom, quietly and without negotiation. She packed aggressively, drawers opening and closing harder than necessary, hangers scraping along the closet rod. I stayed on the couch and kept the television on low volume, not because I was watching it, but because I wanted background noise that was not her commentary. At one point, she came into the living room holding the ring. She set it down on the coffee table in front of me. You are really this cold, she said. I told her I was calm, not cold. There is a difference. She started framing the situation as mutual failure. She said I was emotionally unavailable, that I spent more time polishing metal than building intimacy. It was a familiar list, but the timing mattered. She had not raised these concerns in any serious way before. They only surfaced after she was caught. I asked her directly if she had intended to continue seeing Daniel while planning our wedding. She did not answer that question. Instead, she said it just happened and that adults make mistakes. I responded that mistakes usually involve secrecy and guilt. What I walked in on involved confidence and entitlement. That made her angry. She accused me of humiliating her by forcing her to leave immediately. I reminded her that bringing another man into our garage was the original humiliation. After about 25 minutes, she dragged the duffel to the front door. She called Daniel from the driveway. I heard her say she needed a ride, because I was being unreasonable. That word again. While she waited, I took photos of the garage. The scuff marks on the hood. The belt mark on the windshield. Not for revenge. For documentation. If she tried to dispute property damage or escalate legally, I wanted records. Daniel's car pulled up 10 minutes later. He did not get out. She loaded the bag into his trunk and then turned back toward me. "You are going to regret overreacting," she said. I told her there was no overreaction. There was a boundary, and she had crossed it deliberately. She left without another word. When the car turned the corner, the house felt different. Quieter, but also clearer. I locked the door, checked the garage again, and brought Oliver inside. Then I sat at the kitchen table and started making a list of what needed to be handled next. The first thing I did the next morning was block her number. I did it before I got out of bed. No dramatic message. No explanation. I opened my phone, went to her contact, and blocked calls and texts. Then I blocked her on every social platform we used. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I did not want updates, indirect comments, or screenshots sent through mutual friends. That decision was not emotional. It was preventative. Melissa is persuasive when she wants to be. She reframes events quickly and confidently. I had no interest in debating reality after what I saw with my own eyes. After blocking her, I called the wedding venue and canceled. We were 3 months out, so we lost the deposit. That was acceptable. I also contacted the caterer and the photographer. Short, factual emails. Engagement ended. Event canceled. Please confirm termination and any outstanding balances. Then I called my older brother and told him plainly that the wedding was off due to infidelity. I kept it simple so there would be no distorted version later. He did not ask invasive questions. He just said he would spread the word to extended family so I would not have to repeat it 10 times. Around noon, I received an email from Melissa. The subject line read, "We need to talk like adults." I read it once. It followed a predictable pattern. She acknowledged poor judgment but emphasized my rigidity. She said we both contributed to distance. She asked for a calm conversation to avoid making permanent decisions in anger. I replied with 3 sentences. "The engagement is over. You can coordinate with me by email regarding picking up the remainder of your belongings this Saturday between 10 and noon. After that, there is nothing further to discuss." I did not block her email. It would be the only channel for logistics. I had no interest in reopening anything beyond that. I changed the garage code that afternoon. Not out of paranoia. Out of procedure. When I got home from work, the house did not feel empty. It felt contained. There was no tension in the air. Just space. Oliver slept on the couch next to me like nothing had happened. For the first time since opening that garage door, I felt steady. Saturday morning, she arrived at 9:58. Not alone. Daniel stayed in the passenger seat of his car, engine running. That detail did not surprise me. It felt consistent. Avoid direct accountability. Hover nearby for backup. Melissa walked up the driveway with a rigid posture, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. She did not greet me. She asked where her boxes were. I had already packed everything that was clearly hers into labeled containers and stacked them in the foyer. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, work materials. I had separated anything ambiguous and left it in the guest room for discussion. I was not interested in petty disputes over lamps or kitchenware. She stepped inside without being invited and looked around slowly, like she was assessing damage. "You moved my things," she said. "Yes," I answered. "It makes this faster." She gave a tight smile. Always efficient. We went through the remaining items one by one. A blender her parents bought us. I told her to take it. A set of towels she claimed she purchased. I did not argue. The engagement gifts were technically joint, but I had no intention of dividing a toaster oven in court someday. If it was not clearly mine prior to her moving in, she could take it. At one point, she stopped in the hallway and looked toward the garage door. "Did you fix the car yet?" she asked. I told her I assessed the paint. There were surface scratches. It would take time to correct. She shrugged. "It is just a car." That comment landed differently now. Not because it hurt, because it clarified perspective. I told her it was not about the object. It was about deliberate disrespect. She rolled her eyes again, like I was repeating an old obsession. When everything was loaded into Daniel's trunk and back seat, she stood on the driveway for a moment longer than necessary. "You really are not going to reconsider," she said. "No." She studied my face like she was looking for hesitation. I made sure there was none. Finally, she got into the passenger seat. Daniel did not look at me as they pulled away. I closed the front door and locked it. There were no dramatic tears. No last-minute confessions. Just the practical end of a 3-year relationship reduced to labeled storage bins and a canceled venue contract. And yet something about the way she asked about the car stayed with me longer than anything else she said. The following week was quieter than I expected. There was no flood of messages because I had already cut off the main channels. A few mutual friends reached out cautiously. I kept the explanation consistent. I ended the engagement after discovering infidelity. I am not interested in reconciling. That wording matters. It prevents speculation. On Wednesday afternoon, I received another email from Melissa. This one was shorter. She said she left a pair of earrings in the bathroom drawer and asked if she could stop by to grab them. She added that she would come alone. I considered it for about 30 seconds before replying. No in-person visits. I will mail them. Confirm your address. Her response came quickly. You are acting like I am dangerous. I ignored that line and repeated my request for the address. She sent it. That evening, I went through the bathroom drawer. The earrings were there, small silver studs. I placed them in a padded envelope. Before sealing it, I looked around the house one more time to make sure nothing else of hers remained. I did not want lingering excuses for future contact. While I was in the garage later that night, inspecting the hood under bright light, I noticed something I had missed before. A faint scratch that ran longer than I initially thought. It was not deep, but it would require professional correction. I ran the numbers in my head. It would cost several $100s to restore properly. I sent one more email. There is paint damage to the BMW from the incident. I will be getting a professional estimate. I expect you to cover half of the repair cost. Her reply came an hour later. You cannot be serious. That is ridiculous. We both used that garage. I responded calmly. The damage occurred during an event you initiated. I have photographs and timestamps. I am not asking for the full amount. She accused me of being petty. I did not argue. I attached the photos and said I would forward the invoice once received. There was no further reply that night. For the first time since everything happened, I felt a shift. Not toward reconciliation, toward escalation. Melissa does not like losing leverage. And asking her to pay for something tangible removed her ability to reframe the situation as purely emotional. I started to suspect she was not finished trying to regain control of the narrative. The estimate came back at $860. It was not cosmetic exaggeration. The detail shop documented surface abrasion across the hood and minor stress distortion in the clear coat from concentrated weight. The technician explained that modern paint can flex slightly, but pressure in one area leaves evidence. I forwarded the invoice to Melissa with one line. Half is $430. Please confirm payment within 7 days. Her reply did not take long. You are unbelievable. After everything, you are trying to charge me like I keyed it. That wording stood out. I never mentioned keying. I did not accuse her of intentional vandalism. I described what physically happened. She supplied the escalation herself. I responded with facts. The car was undamaged prior. The damage occurred during the incident. I am requesting partial reimbursement. If you decline, I will pursue it in small claims. That was not a threat. It was procedure. The amount fell well within the threshold for local court. I had photos, timestamps, and her own email acknowledgement of being there. Her next message was longer and sharper. She said if I took her to court, she would tell people I was emotionally controlling, that I isolated her, that I cared more about objects than about her mental state. There it was, the leverage attempt. I did not engage with the accusations. I replied with a single sentence. Please confirm whether you intend to reimburse your portion voluntarily. No answer came that day. Instead, 2 mutual friends texted me asking what was going on. Apparently, Melissa had begun telling people that I had thrown her out without warning after a minor argument. She omitted Daniel entirely. I did not rush to defend myself publicly. I sent each friend a simple response. If you would like the full context, I am willing to share it privately. One of them called immediately. I explained calmly what I walked into in the garage. I did not embellish. I did not insult her. I just described what I saw. There was a long pause on the other end before he said she did not mention any of that. I expected she would not. By the end of the week, the narrative she was trying to build started to fracture under basic questioning. And that seemed to bother her more than the invoice ever did. 3 days after I gave her the 7-day window, I received a payment notification. $430. No message attached. I replied with a brief confirmation that I received it and that once the repair was completed, the matter would be closed. She did not respond. The following week, I dropped the BMW off at the detail shop. When I picked it up, the hood looked the way it had before that night. Smooth, even, restored. The technician walked me through the correction process and confirmed there was no lasting structural issue. That felt symbolic in a practical way. Damage assessed, repaired, documented. I never had to file in small claims. I think once she realized I was not reacting emotionally and that I had evidence, the cost-benefit shifted for her. Fighting it would have required exposure of details she was trying to hide. The social narrative attempt faded quickly. A few more friends reached out privately. Each time, I described the same sequence of events without embellishment. The consistency did the work for me. People are skeptical of dramatic stories, but they recognize straightforward ones. Melissa never apologized. Not directly, not indirectly. The last communication between us was the payment confirmation. 2 months have passed now. The house feels like mine again. Not in a territorial sense. In a calm one. There is no tension about what version of events might be presented later. There is no wondering if I overreacted. I know what I saw. I know how I responded. It was proportional and final. Looking back, the most telling moment was not walking in on them. It was her expression when she saw me. Not fear. Not regret. Irritation. That was clarity. The engagement ended in a garage, but the relationship had probably ended earlier in ways I ignored because they were subtle. Disrespect rarely starts loudly. It builds in small tolerated comments and eye rolls until one day it is sitting on the hood of something you spent years restoring. This time, I did not tolerate it. And I do not regret that.